המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטף, שק. המשמר יציג את נשקו. הצק, שק. המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
The memorial flame will now be lit by the President of the State of Israel. The torch lighting the flame will be given to the President by Ms. Sarah Waspi, who is accompanied by her son Einav. Ms. Waspi is a bereaved widow, bereaved mother, and bereaved grandmother. Her husband, Lieutenant Colonel Yoav Waspi, commander of the 39th Battalion, who led his troops in the battles and preemptive attack on the Golan Heights, fell on the Yom Kippur War on 20 Tishri 5734, October 16, 1973. His courageous combat awarded him with a Medal of Courage after he died. Sarah's son, Corporal Arnon Waspi, fell in battle during the First Lebanon War on 25 ER 5743, May 8, 1983. Her grandson, Captain Arnon Moshe Avraham Ben Benisti, fell in battle during the Iron Swords War in the northern Gaza Strip on 7 Kislev 5784, November 20th, 2023. The son of her second husband, Yaakov of blessed memory, Private Omri Ben Zichri, was killed at an IDF post on the Lebanese border on 15 Tishri 5748, October 7th, 1987. Sarah's cousin, Corporal Nir Mizrahi, fell in the line of duty while serving in the Armored Corps on 23 Elul 5744, September 19th, 1984. And Sarah's nephew, her twin brother's son, Lieutenant Ori Maoz, fell in action seeking out terrorist hideouts in southern Lebanon on 28 Tammuz 5748, July 13th, 1988. May the memory of all the fallen in Sarah Waspi's family be a blessing.
החטף, שק. המשמר ידגל את נשקו. דגל, שק. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטף, שק.
יזכורו מפי יואב ויינברג.
Score by Yoav Weinberg, the son of Colonel Dror Weinberg of blessed memory, the most senior-ranking IDF officer killed during the Second Intifada. He was 38 years old when he died in heroic battle in Hebron on 11 Kislev 5763, November 15th, 2002. He was the commander of the Judean Brigade under the Judea and Samaria Division at the time. His mother lost both her brothers during the Six-Day War. Yoav will be accompanied by his brother Ori. Yoav was wounded during Operation Protective Edge while serving as the deputy company commander of Maglan Commando Unit, and Ori, also an elite combat troop, was wounded in the battles of Iron Swords War in Gaza.
יזכור עם ישראל את בניו ובנותיו, הנאמנים והאמיצים, חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל וכל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים.
May the people of Israel remember its sons and daughters, loyal and brave, the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, its underground fighters and combatants in Israel's wars, and all the members of the intelligence community, police, security forces and prison service who gave their lives in the struggle for the redemption of State of Israel and all those murdered by the terrorist organizations. May all Israel remember and be blessed by their offspring and mourn the loss of the beauty of youth, the heroic acts, the sanctity of their willingness and deep devotion of those lost in those fierce battles. May we cherish in our hearts the memory of these heroes of Israel's victorious battles forever and ever.
המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
נא לשבת.
Please be seated.
דבר נשיא מדינת ישראל.
President of the State of Israel, Mr. Isaac Herzog, will now address us.
בכל שנה אחרי הצפירה,
Every year, after the siren is heard, here in the Western Wall, there is a sanctified and special silence, which is only heard this moment every year. But this year there is no silence, there is no quiet, because this year is not the same siren. This year, this siren of mourning, commemorating the fallen who have fallen since the beginning, since the establishment of the State of Israel, there is another siren which is long and continuous, one that began at 6:29 a.m. on the morning of October 7th, in the midst of Simchat Torah holiday, and continues and accompanies us today. It is crying out, it is sharp, it is burning, it is the crying out of a nation of national mourning. My God, cry out, daughter of Israel, cry out and weep. The fire has eaten Israel. I stand here by the remnant of the temple with a torn piece of clothing. Clothing that is torn is a symbol of grief and mourning of the entire nation. It is a national year of mourning. It is a symbol of a bleeding tear in the heart of the nation, a tear in the heart of the State of Israel, which is crying and cannot be consoled because of the daughters and sons it has lost. Soldiers and civilians, civilians and soldiers will not stop crying. Our eyes will shed tears because the crisis is so big. I would like to turn to you, our hostages, our brothers and sisters who are being held captive in their families. All of these national days, we do not forget you for a moment. No bigger commandment is it than redemption. We must be courageous. We must choose life. We must not rest until they return, all of them, home. bereaved families, beloved, dear families, the wounded of terror attacks and Israeli wars, Minister of Defense, Chief of General Staff, and heads of the defense establishment, ministers and members of Knesset, the 10th President, rabbis, diplomats, ambassadors, representatives of various organizations, as well as civilian and bereaved families. Last year, I was talking to you about the 9th plot at Mount Herzl, the fallen of the 1948 war. But since the last Memorial Day and this year's Memorial Day, so many more graves have been added. Hundreds more graves have been added throughout Israel and have changed the landscape and our landscape. The pain is tremendous. Just a few hours ago, we accompanied in the funeral 5 of our beloved sons. From Dan to Be'er Sheva, from Gilad to the sea, there's not a single step of our soil that has not been covered with blood. A few nights ago, I went to Mount Herzl once again. I found myself walking around the graves, and I was so grateful. I felt with such strength the intergenerational connection between the plots, yearning, valor, pain, redemption, a connection of a fighting spirit that we find in every generation, a connection between plot 9 from 1948 to the plots of those who fell in Latrun and the Mitle, Ammunition Hill, Sinai and the Golan Heights, and the Beaufort and Bint Jbel, and the other battlefields, so many, countless, in intelligence, assignments, operations, and terror attacks since the beginning of Zionism. And from there to the new graves, there are so many of them on Mount Herzl that have been added, unfortunately, and continue to add to plots, yes, plots in plural, of the fallen from this last war. Believe me, brothers and sisters, that I would have liked so much, with all my heart, to tell the story of each and every one of the beloved who have fallen from each and every of Israel's wars, from all of the defense forces across Israel, their kindness, their beauty, their valor. But the crisis is so huge, and we have so many who are dead, too many. And therefore, I must see before me what one bereaved father told me just weeks ago. I hear them telling of one son who was dead, and I think it's my son they're talking about, he said. And therefore, in my address tonight, I am asking to return once again to that nightly visit at Mount Herzl and to light small candles, small stories of some of the fallen this year. Each and every one of them represents something about the eternal image of all of the fallen in Israel's wars and in all the terror attacks. They are a mirror of thousands of stories. We will forever remember and love and cherish in our hearts the memory of them all of them. My soldiers are there and I need to be there. That's what Colonel Jonathan Steinberg told his wife on the morning of October 7th. Yoni, who is the commander of the Nachal Brigade, came across terrorists on his way south. He was killed fighting heroically and was buried in the new plot on Mount Herzl. The biggest thing you can do is to safekeep the nation of Israel, said Yoni in a recording to his son. Right next to him, I see the grave of Colonel Roni Levy, who was wounded critically in Operation Protective Edge, recovered, went back to fighting, and even lit a torch on Israel's 70th Independence Day. But that dark day, he too went to Re'im, and he fought the enemy until he was shot and killed. Yoni and Ro'i are examples of commanders who run on ahead because they are the pillars of fire leading the camp. When I saw their graves side by side, I could not but remember so many other commanders, heroes we have lost during Israel's wars, commanders who were leading the force and paid the worst price possible. And not too far from them is Eitan Haddad's grave, who is a member of the first response unit from Be'eri. He was born and raised there, and now he is buried on the mountain. I stood there at night on the mountain and thought of the long hours of heroic battles throughout the Western Negev communities, civilian courage, and all the members of the rapid response units, the coordinators of civil security, and civilians who fought and lost their lives, fighting, sometimes alone, on the first line of fire until their final bullet. Hundreds of civilians fell on October 7th and during the entire war. And in the spirit of the Unatane Tokef prayer that we say on Yom Kippur just a few days before that terrible, tragic day, we during this Memorial Day remember all those murdered, all those who fell, civilians and soldiers, whether by fire, by strangulation, by sword, whomever who was at the entrance to their home and who was on the street, some in the battlefield, some in the outpost, some in the bus station, some in the police station, some in the car, some in the kibbutz, some in the party, maybe in the shopping mall, or by missile or rocket, some in tunnels, some in hiding places. Forever, forever, we will remember them. Generations have dreamed of coming to Jerusalem. We have the honor to defend it. That's what Belat said a year ago. This is what Rubin said just a year ago. A lone soldier on the morning of October 7th, Roz defended the kibbutz Sa'ad, and a month later she fell in battle with a terrorist in the old city of Jerusalem. The police officers plot on Mount Herzl, where Rose is buried, is one of valor, the image of Israeli police officers in this war. I see Rose's grave and I remember all those brave women, female soldiers and police officers, commanders and warriors, heroines of Israel who have lost their lives, who defended their country, saved lives and paid with their own. And like Rose, on the tombstone of our nation, so many come from various countries, immigrants, heroes who have traveled far in order to take part in this great war, in order for us to realize the vision of living in Israel. And now they are buried in the Holy Land on Mount Herzl and across Israel. Friendship is a virtue, and now this friendship is giving us the spirit of fighting on the home front and on the war front. Colonel Tomer Greenberg, who was born in Kfar Saba, living in the valley. I see his grave on Mount Herzl just near the silent plot of the 35. And just like Salman Chabaka, who was buried by his home in the Druze village of Yanuach Zajat. On October 7th, the two of them, Salman and Tomer, fought with courage in the kibbutzim. Tomer in Kfar Aza and Nachal Oz, and Salman in Be'eri. The two of them fell in battle in the Gaza Strip. I'm here, Salman, I'm here. Can I help you with anything? Salman's voice was heard on the radio just moments before he was killed. Please cover for me, said Tomer. And this friendship is an Israeli alliance, a pact that crosses religions, perceptions, political positions. I cry out, the bereaved families who are Druze and Bedouin, they cry out, they demand of us and of all of us to acknowledge the honor and privilege of being part of the Israeli story as equals among equals, to the full extent of that phrase. Every name is a world that has come crashing down. Every name is a void that will never be filled. Here is the grave of Levi Lifshitz from Modi'in, who did not want, as he said, to be a war animal. And before he left home for the last time, he said, I am fighting for my country. It is the right thing to do. And not too far from him, on Mount Herzl, the graves of Oriya Aimal Goshen, son of a Zionist, determined family who came here from Ethiopia, and Roy Dawi from Jerusalem, who was drafted to Givati following Liel Gidoni, who fell in Operation Protective Edge and are also buried on Mount Herzl. The three of them, Ro'i, Oriya, and Liel, and so many others who have fallen in reserve duty and in conscript army, have left behind them final words, commanding just one thing: smile, just smile. And there are some moments there in the new plots where you remain breathless and your heart is crushed, one grave next to the other, Noam and Ishai Slotki. On the morning of October 7th, the two brothers left their children and their wives behind, and even though no one asked them to, they hurried to fight at Kibbutz Alumim. Together, they stormed the kibbutz and killed many terrorists, and together they fell, beloved and pleasant in their lives and deaths. They did not part. I see their graves, and I think about so many families who have lost more than one beloved member. Their world coming crashing down once and again, and the verse and on Mount Herzl being echoing, why should I bereave you both in 2 days? If I could, I would stand here tonight and tell you the story of each and every one of our fallen this year and throughout the years. But unfortunately, I could only tell you of a few of them, because behind each such story, each such candle, huge flames of valor, courage, strength, and life of many burn. Citizens of Israel, on this holy day, I would like to remind us all in the world at large that we have never wanted or chosen this terrible war. Did not choose this one or any of those before it. All we wanted was to return to Zion, from which we have been exiled forcefully, and to relive here in a democratic and Jewish state, to build a life here, a future here, and hope. We've always dreamed of peace and being good neighbors to all nations and countries in the region, and we will not cease to do so ever. But as long as our enemies will seek to destroy us, we will not put down our swords. These last few months have been so painful, but we have learned about the strength of the Israeli nation during them, because we have come out of this crisis and we have fought. We discovered the IDF and security forces, warriors from the age of 17 to 97 on all fronts, from all forces in the south, in the north, in Judea and Samaria, and in every area. They risk their lives for us, and they expect and ask of us all the time that we remember we are one single nation, that we be worthy, that we simply just be worthy. This torn shirt I am wearing, this bloody tear that we feel in our hearts cannot remain meaningless. The bereaved families tell me this time and again. The torn heart of the nation must be healed. It must heal the tear in the nation, the rift in the nation. And this is a cry out. Please do. Please resurrect as a nation. I would like to pray for the recovery of all wounded in body and in the mind. We must support them and their families as they battle through their recovery, as they treat their mental and physical scars. I would like to strengthen and embrace, on behalf of us all, the IDF soldiers and so many reservists who have left everything behind in order to go to the front for so many months and have lost friends in battle. I would like to strengthen and embrace, on behalf of us all, the police force, the border police, and the special units, the ISA, the Mossad, the IPS, the Rapid Response Unit, and all defense establishment arms, the fire brigade, and the rescue forces. I would like to thank them and their families who sacrifice so much for this country, for the privilege of protecting and defending Israel, the privilege of serving in the IDF. It's a huge privilege. It's not a burden, it's a privilege, a huge one. Huge sanctified privilege, sanctified by blood. May God defend them and protect them forever. Bereaved families, beloved and dear bereaved families, on behalf of the entire nation, I would like to thank you. I bow my head down in the presence of your courage and hope that you will have days of loving kindness, recovery, joy, and hope. We get so much from you. We are inspired by you. 2 months before Yishai Slotki was killed, his daughter Be'eri Shachar was born, and now this little baby's name has a new meaning. Shachar is a dawn, and we want a new dawn to rise upon the kibbutz of Be'eri and other communities in the south. That's their father, Yishai's father, said during their funeral. And Avia Slutki said, the name Shachar Be'eri resembles the hope that cannot be destroyed. The people of Israel, my brothers and sisters, today too, deep within this national grief, I believe with all my heart that a new dawn will rise on Israel. Thanks to and for them and for us. May the memory of the fallen of Israeli wars and terror attacks be cherished in the heart of our nation for generations. IDF Chief of General Staff, Lieutenant Colonel Herzi Halevi, will now address us. On the day when a person takes upon themselves the burden of commanding in the IDF, they put on their shoulder responsibility and commits to valor. Their soldiers are taught how to fight in the war, how to be a soldier. They teach them how to have values, to be professional, to be determined, to initiate, and to commit themselves to the job at hand. They tell them the heritage of those before them, heroes of Israeli wars, and shapes them. They lead them and keep having the responsibility for their lives. It is that person's responsibility. When they fall, the commander goes to their families and has the same responsibility on his shoulders that never passes. This responsibility is embedded is shown on the faces of these commanders, and I see it every time I meet them. President of the State of Israel, Mr. Yitzhak Herzog, Minister of Defense, Mr. Yoav Gallant, bereaved families, dear and beloved and distinguished audience. During the war, I have often come to the forces fighting in the Gaza Strip. Imagine the battlefield, and before me is a young officer who is courageous but also thoughtful, and who realizes the responsibility, and he shares the battle stories and key insights, and I listen to him and learn from him. And when I leave, with me is the image of the commander in him, and I know that I can rely on him and others like him. And as time goes by, I hear that a ferocious battle and fierce battle had taken place and he had fallen. The memory of his determined look and his strong words will always accompany me. It is so painful to have lost him, but the cause is worthy. Every Memorial Day we stand here and read the prayer of Yizkor for our commanders and troops who are no longer. The youth, the courage, the sanctity of the desire, and the commitment. And as we read this prayer, we recite it and we remember the fallen, what they have managed to do in their short lives and what they have not managed to do. And when we recite about the courage, we see before us the last moments, the value-based choices, the courageous decisions they made in order to uphold their oath to defend the state of Israel. A yearning for valor, a yearning for something that you think is within reach. It is the essence of human desire because it seeks to obtain what is not within reach. There are many facets of the valor of the IDF troops throughout the years. The stories of their courage are different in time, in place, in circumstance, but they all share one single factor. The heroes of the IDF have been drafted to the IDF because they had a sense of duty, of meaning, and when the time came, they had the courage to do the right thing. And in the service of every troop and soldier, there is valor. In the willingness to take the responsibility, to take on a role that is risky. That's valor. In every action of an individual to protect and defend the many, there is valor. The fallen of Israeli wars did not seek death, but they wanted full lives. They wanted to follow their love. They wanted to realize their dreams. They wanted to leave behind a mark in this world. They were heroes for others and on behalf of life. And when they fell, they left behind them a mark of courage forever. Today, we hang our heads low in memory of those who fought before us and alongside us in the wars for Israel's redemption and liberty and have lost their lives in battle when facing the enemy. We remember those who have lost their lives in accidents and those who could not stand the illness of their bodies or minds. As we remember the missing ranks, we swear that we will stand by our wounded in body and in mind, and we will do everything we can in order to locate those who are missing and have them return to Israel. We swear not to forget the hostages, women, men, children, and the elderly, civilians and soldiers, and not to abandon our profound duty to have them return home swiftly. On this Memorial Day, on Israel's 76th year of its independence, and on behalf of every IDF commander before me, I salute the 25,040 fallen of Israeli wars. As a commander, as the chief of general staff in the IDF in this war, I take responsibility for the IDF having failed in its mission to protect the civilians of Israel and the citizens of Israel on October 7th. I feel the weight of this war on my shoulders every single day, and in my heart I understand well its meaning. I hang my head low in memory of the civilians that we did not have the time to save, our colleagues, the members of the Rapid Response Unit and security forces, and the IDF soldiers, reservists, men and women, and conscript soldiers who fell in battle since the war began and until today. They were warriors, fighters who took responsibility wholly for their task to defend Israel. They overcame what was in their way and they stormed on ahead without waiting to be told. They stuck to their duty and did not abandon it in the face of evil they saw before them. In the heat of war, they led and were led by commanders straight into the inferno. In long days of tough, bold fighting, in the midst of the enemies, above ground and below ground, they have all stood bravely, facing the danger and overcoming it. We have a huge debt, an endless debt, to all those who have walked down this narrow path between the sanctity of life and giving of life. They saw themselves as those who alone had to determine the fate of the war. They did not ask for anything except to be a shield unto their nation. Dear bereaved family members, on the day of it when a commander loses one of his soldiers, his responsibility.
Doron Herzl Halevi referring to the mission of saving the hostages and sounding an apologetic note, saying for those we did not save on October 7th, and a public taking of responsibility for what happened.
Exactly. He said it before. I mean, said we failed in 7th of October and we are trying to get back, dismantle Hamas and bring our hostages back. This is a commitment of the Chief of Staff in this day that we have really to understand the full weight of what had happened and what we have to do next. We're in the midst of a war. This is not an Independence Day outside of the war zone. This is in a war zone.
Right, and also a message to the troops to, in a sense, kind of boost the troops. That's something I've not quite heard of, because we really haven't had, certainly not, I think you'd have to go back to the first Lebanon war, and a Memorial Day that is so in the midst of battle. Exactly. A reminder from the president just of 5 fatalities, combat fatalities in Gaza the other day.
2 days ago, exactly. It was very touching, the story that he was referring to, of a commander that he meets on the ground, and he gets this feeling, because when a commander meets a young commander, he knows whether this is a guy he can trust, and he said, this is a commander I can trust, and then a few days later he discovers that he died in battle. This was a very personal and touching story. Yeah, he has to boost the troops. We are not now, we can't, of course we have to mourn, we have to take responsibility, but we have to keep fighting, because we're in the midst of this war. The hostages are not here. Hamas is not completely dismantled, and we have so many fronts open in the north. Yeah, tough times.
Tough times. Let's go back to the Herzl Halevi, the Chief of Staff.
The attempt of others to hurt us. IDF soldiers, commanders. On the day we wore the IDF, put on and we donned on ourselves responsibility. On the day of our drafting, we are united for one worthy cause, defending our country. That is the way it has always been, and that is the way it will always be. It is a huge privilege to be your commander. You are heroes, you are value-based, you are determined and committed, you are willing to take a risk for this worthy cause, the worthiest of causes. Our duty and debt to the fallen is from generations before us, from all those who have yearned for this country and have not been able to enter it, and for all those who have returned to this country, who have held on to the soil, and whose valor ensures redemption and the rising of Israel in its country that the IDF protects. May the memory of the fallen be a blessing. Yossi Gamzu wrote the following: those who will be no longer, those we will no longer meet, those who will never again laugh, those who stood up to the fire, those who ran on ahead, all those who were and are no longer, still remain. They remain in all of our hearts. They remain and will remain forever. In the wonderful smile, in the shooting rifle, in the silence, and in the warmth of weeping. How short is springtime, how silent the post, how mute are the songs in their presence. All the great words are worthless in the presence of a single mother of a single one of them all. They remain. No memory will forgive. No forgetting will erase. No love will heal in time. Except here, they will no longer know whether to be silent or cry out. The silences alone cry out on their own. They remain.
המשמר יעבור לדום. משמר דום. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד נוח.
Let us rise as a chapter from Psalms is recited, as well as the prayer for the souls of the holy, Kaddish, and the prayer of El Malei Rachamim, to be followed by Israel's national anthem, Hatikva. Chapter 83 of Psalms, by the rabbi of the Western Wall, Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich.
משמר דום.
A song, a psalm of Asaph. O God, keep not thou silence. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies are in an uproar, and they that hate thee have lifted up their heads. They hold crafty converse against thy people, and take counsel against thy treasured ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. Against thee do they make a covenant. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagrites, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, Philistia with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also is joined with them. They have been an arm to the children of Lot, Selah. Do thou unto them as unto Midian, as to Sisera, as to Jabin, at the brook Kishon, who were destroyed at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb and Zeb, and like Zebah and Zalmunna all their princes. Who said, Let us take to ourselves in possession the habitations of God. O my God, make them like the whirling dust, as a stubble before the wind, as the fire that burneth the forest, and as the flame that setteth the mountains ablaze. So pursue them with thy tempest, and affright them with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Let them be ashamed and affrighted forever. Let them be abashed and perish, that they may know that it is thou alone whose name is the Lord, the Most High over all the earth.
המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד נוח.
A prayer for the souls of the holy by the IDF Chief Rabbi, Brigadier General Rabbi Eyal Krim.
משמר יעבור לדום. משמר דום.
Our holy brothers and sisters, heroes of Israel, of mighty spirit and action, who have given their lives for the sanctity of God, the nation and country in Israel's wars, in acts of defense, retaliation and security, in the line of duty and while serving, and all underground fighters and combat brigades and all the fallen in Israel's wars, and all the members of the intelligence community, police, security forces, and prison service who gave their lives in the struggle for the redemption of the State of Israel and the establishment of the state, and all those who were murdered here in Israel and beyond its borders by the hands of murderers from terrorist organizations. God will remember you in kindness, avenge your pure blood with compassion. For it says, "Sing aloud, O ye nations of his people, for he doth avenge the blood of his servants, and doth render vengeance to his adversaries, and doth make expiation to the land of his people." Hashem will make your light shine and expedite the end of your waiting. The gates of heaven will always be open to you in safe paths and dwellings. You will sit with the heavenly angels. Your souls will be bound in the bond of life. Hashem your God, for you have fought God's war. We will see Jerusalem consoled, the vision of the resurrection of the dead with our own eyes as prophesied by our prophet, Israel's shepherd, Ezekiel, son of Buzi the priest, for the end of time as follows. Thus saith the Lord God, "Behold, I will open your graves, and cause you to come up out of your graves, O my people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am the Lord, when I have opened your graves and caused you to come up out of your graves, O my people. And I will put my spirit in you, and you shall live. And I will place you in your own land. You shall know that I, the Lord, have spoken and performed it, saith the Lord."
המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
Kaddish
by the Rabbi Shmuel Slotki, father of brothers Noam and Yishai Slotki of blessed memory. Sergeant Major Noam Slotki and Master Sergeant Yishai Slotki lived in adjacency to one another in Beersheba. And when they heard the sirens on Saturday morning, they did not wait to be told to report to duty. They put on their uniform and rushed to defend the Gaza envelope communities. Both fell in battle at the gates of Kibbutz Alumim on 22 Tishri 5784, October 7th, 2023.
המשמר יעבור לדום. משמר דום.
גדל והתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך יראותיה וימליך מלכותיה ויצמח פורקני ויקרב משיחי. בחייכון וביום איכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי העלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
The
prayer of El Maleh Rachamim, merciful God, by the IDF Chief Cantor, Lieutenant Colonel Shai Abramson.
המשמר יעבור לדום. משמר דום. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטף, שק.
מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים לנשמות חללי מערכות ישראל שנפלו במלחמות ישראל בפעולת הגנה תגמול וביטחון בעת מילוי תפקידם ובעת שירותם ושחרפו נפשם למות על קדושת השם ובעזרת אלוהי מערכות ישראל הביאו לתקומת האומה והמדינה ולגאולת הארץ ועיר האלוהים ולכל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי המרצחים מארגוני הטרור בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים וייצרו בצרו החיים את נשמותיהם אדוני הוא נחלתם ושלום על משכבותם ויעמדו לגואלם לקץ הימים ונאמר
לסיים
We will conclude with the singing of Hatikva, which today will be charged with another profound meaning. From the bottom of our hearts, hope and prayer that no more of our sons and daughters shall fall. Hope and prayer for the recovery of all wounded. Let us pray for the immediate return of the hostages to their homes, their families, and their country. Bini Talmi wrote that when you return here, weary, on the path leading up, we will embrace you quietly and lovingly, wordlessly. We will see in your eyes, between the extinguished flames, the sparks of joy and compassion, the sparks of your soul, and the beauty of the soul that did not stop. Blessed be the God who hears a prayer. Hatikva.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה נפש יהודי הומייה ולפתר מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים.
המשמר יחטיף את נשקו, החטף, שק. המשמר יציג את נשקו, הצק, שק. המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
אזרחי ישראל,
Citizens of Israel, we invite you to visit the Ministry of Defense's Department of Families, Commemoration and Heritage's Yizkor website. Light a virtual candle in memory of the fallen of Israel's wars and thereby add to the memory flame.